Hi, this is lesson 1 of crosshatching. In this particular lesson, we are going to explore crosshatching with pencil. You're going to see different types of pencils, and what I would like you to start doing is get a feel for the best relationship you can find between pencil and surface, like what kind of paper you're going to use. So we're about to take a look at that. This is simply a piece of photocopy paper. This is what I have here in my little office. I have 2 of them here, but we're going to use one, and you'll see why, because it's really important to draw on the hardest surface possible. Why is that? If I had, let's say, a sketchbook, and I was trying to crosshatch with a pencil in that sketchbook, I would have the following issue. Imagine this is my sketchbook, it's kind of soft, and what ends up happening with pencil is that the pencil digs in and you see that it goes through sometimes 2 or 3 layers of paper. That's the last thing I want when I crosshatch. It's better to have the hardest surface possible. So even when I draw in a sketchbook, I put a clipboard between the rest of the sketchbook and the page that I'm drawing on, because I always want to draw on a hard surface. You want the least amount of softness between the page that you draw on and the surface underneath. It's really crucial because otherwise you will not get the results that you want with crosshatching. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my simple piece of paper. I'm going to attach it to my clipboard. There you go. Again, very cheap material. Here we have probably less than 2 cents of material to begin with. And this is an important thing because sometimes when you start picking up a habit, whether it's working out or sketching, you always think, well, if I have really good material, I'm going to have good results. Well, it doesn't work that way. Really, if you have the cheapest material possible, it's all about the skill. It's all about how you are going to practice your skill and how much you're going to do it. So keep in mind that going cheap is really the way to go. And it also makes the process a little less intimidating. You know, when you open a sketchbook and it was an expensive one, and you put the pressure on yourself, oh my gosh, it better be good. You really don't want to start that way. Just relax. Use cheap materials. And talking of cheap, let's talk about what we're going to draw with. I decided to go with the simplest tool, which is a big mechanical pencil. It's 09, which is a little thicker than what is usually sold in stores, which is 07 or 05. I like it a little thicker, but it's still a mechanical pencil, which means I'm never going to have to sharpen it. I love that. I love the fact that I make lines, and then if it gets a little dull, I turn it around a little bit, and then you get to a sharper edge on your lead here. And this, by the way, is a number 2, which means it's an HB. So nothing fancy. Again, we're really middle of the road material here. It's not too dark, not too light. This is what we're going to use. But we're also going to use one of my favorite tools. Now, this is a little bit more expensive, but bear with me. This is a lead holder made by Koh-i-Noor. I am not sure what nationality it is, but I want to say it's Dutch. And what this does is it holds very thick lead. You see how big this is? I have one in there right now. Take a look. This is a thick lead. Look at the difference of thickness between my 09, which is already fairly thick, and the thickness of this. I love drawing with this because this allows you to start with broad strokes, and as you will see in a few minutes, it will build the underneath of where really the cross-hatching is going. So when we work with pencil, this is really a good idea. Now, what I have in there right now is 4B. I don't know if you can see here. See, it says 4B. Now, that is pretty dark. I really like dark lead. And by the way, the brand is Cretacolor, which is from Austria. But today I don't want to go too dark because I'm afraid with my HB pencil, there's going to be too much of a contrast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my lead. This is what I buy them in. You've got 6 leads. This is all the 4B, but in there I have a little 2B that I was using prior. I'm going to use that. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to replace my 4B lead with a 2B. I'm going to do that quickly. By the way, another thing that is great about this kind of pencil is that when you're done, you press the back and boom, the lead falls in, never comes out. It doesn't stain the rest of everything you have in your pencil case. I use a pencil case with a lot of things in it. And trust me, I want to keep it clean inside because it gets very messy very quickly. So there it is. This is fairly heavy. I really like the feel of this particular lead holder. You can sharpen it in any pencil sharpener. But I personally like keeping it this way, which is a tiny little bit dull, because it allows me to make some broader strokes. So we're going to start with an exercise, okay? And it's a little demo that is going to use what, in my opinion, is the closest thing to a human face, and that's a potato. Why is the potato so interesting to draw? Well, first of all, when you start drawing something like this, you're not worried about resemblance. You have a potato, if you're really making it a little bit curved this way or a little higher that way, it really doesn't matter, it still looks like a potato. So you get rid of the pressure of having to worry about resemblance, and that's a huge deal. And the beautiful thing is that it has in common a lot of things with the face. You see it has little nooks and crannies, it's curved, it will pick up light the same way a face picks up light. I really love drawing this for exercise. So I'm just going to put it on the table in front of me. And the first thing I want to make sure I know is when I look at my potato is, okay, where is the dark part of the potato? Where is the light part? Because the dark is what is going to have the most cross-hatching, if that makes any sense, okay? So look, the light comes from here and the dark is there. And when I set it on my table, this is a little different here because I'm a bit of an angle, but there's going to be a little bit of a shadow here. And that's what we're going to draw. So I'm going to set it on the table right here in front of me, nothing fancy, and I'm going to start drawing this potato. And to make the first strokes, I'm going to use this particular tool, okay? Again, this is not a very difficult object to draw because the shape of a potato is fairly random, okay? There are no big rules about this. This is it. This is the shape of my potato. And it looks as though, let me see, I have a little bit of a shadow going. It's very vague because I'm using natural light today. So the shadow is not as well defined as if I had a spotlight, for instance, but that's okay. Now, needless to say, this part of the drawing is going to be the darkest. And everything else, you really have to look at your object first. Before you draw anything, look at it carefully. It looks as though my darker areas are here and here. I have a little bit of, tiny bit of lightness underneath, but not much. And I have these little nooks and crannies here. I have one over here. And I have one there. Okay, so basically that is the rough sketch of my potato. Now what happens before I even crosshatch, I am going to fill in, just like that, the darker areas of the object, okay? See, I'm not cross-hatching. I'm not even lifting up my pencil from the surface. I just want to cover and darken what needs to be darkened. Here too. As long as you don't lose track of what you're drawing, don't just keep your eyes on the paper, keep your eyes on your object. And trust your hand. Your hand is not going to go off the page, don't worry. Okay, so you see what I'm doing here? Okay, so I filled in a little bit here, the same way I did when I first started. And now I want to point out the fact that, of course, this is pretty instinctive. The more you put pressure on your pencil, the more you're going to achieve dark results. So our shadow is going to be dark. But I don't want to do it all because I'm afraid I'm going to smear when I go like this. I just want to show you the beginning of it, how how I decide that this is going to be really the darkest part of my drawing, because it is. It is what I see in front of me. Keep in mind that drawing is before anything else, it's about seeing. And not let your brain decide what things should look like according to what you think they should look like. Keep your eyes in charge, okay? Not your brain. Okay, I'm going to stop here with the shadow again, because if I fill in too far down, it's going to prevent me from going back up on the potato. All right, so my lighter area of the potato is here. I might bring in more of this here later, but right now I'm going to show you something. Now that I've got some kind of layer, and I would like to show it a little closer. See this? It's messy, isn't it? There's nothing beautiful about it. And now I'm going to bring in the same pencil and start making little hatches that follow the shape of my potato. You see, they're curved. They won't always be curved, you will notice, because they're not always kind of long like that. But here, I have a big area here that I know I can cover. So I'm doing this. Okay. Okay, because I know this is dark, so I'm going kind of all in with the cross hatching here. Always start cross hatching where you have the darkest area on your object, okay? Whether it's a face, whether it's an object like this, or a fruit, or in this case, a potato. See, I'm already smearing, but I mean, we don't have to worry about this because that's what erasers are for. It will somehow get messy. But did you notice that my hatching is according to the shape of the potato? And don't think for a second that I have a rule as to whether I'm going to cross hatch this way or that way. It's really very random. It's whatever feels right the moment I draw it. Like, oh, look, if I do a hatch like this, oh, and then if I do it like that, it looks okay, so I do that. And that's exactly how you want to practice doing things. It's when it looks good, then that's what you do. If it feels right, that's what you do. So I don't want to make long cross hatches because it really doesn't work for me, especially on such small surfaces. So I keep them small. And when they're kind of small, you have a better control over what you do with them. Okay. Things are getting a little sketchy, and that's good. That's what I want, because that's what cross-hatching does. Kind of gives you a little bit of a sketchy edge on what you draw. Okay, now we're going back up towards the light, and that's okay. I have some darkness here that I have to deal with. Again, the more pressure you put on your pencil, the more you're going to get dark strokes, but that's pretty instinctive, isn't it? Okay, here. It's fairly dark in here as well. These two things here. Okay, but the darkness doesn't come all the way to them. So I leave a little bit of light here, because that's what I see on my potato here. Okay. Okay, so look at what's happening. I am going to build a little bit here, but I just want you to get a feel. And when things get a little too, I don't know, messy is not exactly the word that I'm looking for, but not quite as smooth as you want them to be, then here's what you do. With this thick lead, you just sort of come back and fill in the bits that you think are a little light in between, and then it just sort of blends everything together. I never, ever blend with my finger, because in my opinion that takes away from exactly what I want things to look like. So I just blend with the pencil itself. It's funny, there's an interesting little spot here that's dark underneath and then lighter. Yep. Okay. Okay. It's light here, but it's not as light as here, so I can still fill it in a little bit. All right. Darkness here. Again, always keeping track of what my eyes see and not what my brain thinks a dark area should look like. I really trust my eyes, okay? Now, when I come in with my thinner mechanical pencil, remember it's an 09, what I can do now is make things look even more interesting where the darkness is by bringing in, so you're not going to see it very well on the part that's already dark, but bringing in little strokes over that are going to make things interesting. Look at that. A little bit here too, lighter, and then pressure. Pressure here because I have dark. So you see what this does? I realize that I have more darkness here than I originally thought I saw. There it is. Yeah, it is darker down there. Interesting. Okay, coming back up here, remember that our potato is curved. So we're not going to cross-hatch flat when what we want to convey is volume, correct? And I insist on that because it's exactly the same thing on a face, or even if you draw the portrait of a dog or a cat. And here I'm ever so lightly bringing in little hatches towards the light, because towards the light it's going to be really hardly anything. Okay, I see a little bit of lightness here, but that's okay. Still filling in lightly. Okay. Move your pencil in different directions. You'll be surprised at the results, because really that's what you're looking for. It's kind of, oh, surprise yourself. I can do this. I can make this volume appear. And make this a little darker by just insisting on some spots in particular. See, it's starting to appear as volume and the light coming in. I might even, with my eraser, make this line a little less strong, although I haven't decided that yet. I may. And again, my little crosshatches all over the place. Getting lighter and lighter as we approach the part that has the light, which is mainly the top here and the area there. Yeah, as I'm getting close to it, I'm starting to think, okay, why don't I make this a little less strong? Again, not using a fancy eraser, as you can see. Oh, these are my smears. Okay. Okay, look at that. Sometimes you can just get rid of a line altogether if it's so close to the light. It's not what we're going to do here. I'm going to still draw a very thin one. Just going to suggest the top. Okay, I'm noticing that there's a tiny bit of dark here, so I'm coming in. Did you notice how much of this cross-hatching business is layering and layering and layering? I come back, notice, oh wow, it's actually darker. Boom, you come back into that same area, add more. Then you come back later and you realize, oh my gosh, I could have added more. You're constantly adding, but not to the point that you're going to suffocate your drawing with little hatches, because that wouldn't be right either. But you see what I tried to achieve here? A little bit of light, a little bit of dark, which is really representing the shape of the potato here. And just by adding darkness, this just sort of appears. There you go. I'm not going to go much further than this. All I want to do now is tackle this shadow at the bottom, because once the shadow is there, you'll see it. It's going to look a lot more realistic. Just a tiny, tiny bit here. Very light. Now I'm really not pressing on my pencil. Did you notice? I'm not pressing at all. This guy looks a little lonely up here, but that's how it is. Okay. Always noticing a darker area every time I come back. Funny enough, I am going to create that shadow underneath with, well, let me see. Yeah, this works. You know, the moment you put pressure on a pencil, you can do anything. Yeah, patience, you know. I think a lot of people think that this is all talent. This is skill. And this is time, a lot of time spent drawing. Okay, let's use my 2B here and add the darkness that I want to achieve. It's great to have a big lead to do something like this, right? Saves a little bit of time, but still you have to put in the time. There you go. I'm making my camera shake a little bit, and I apologize for that, but it's so hard just to stay. Oh, and look at what I'm doing now. I'm flipping my drawing so that my cross-hatching continues to go from top to bottom. Did you notice that I never cross-hatch from bottom to top away from me? I cross-hatch the same way that I peel a potato. Bear with me on this. I cross-hatch the same way I peel a potato or a carrot. Meaning, I've seen people peel a potato going like this, taking the knife and going away and peeling away. I peel the opposite way, going towards me. And this is exactly how I cross-hatch. This is the best way to keep control over this motion, is to have a up to down motion rather than the opposite. The opposite, it gets away from you. The moment you pull it towards you, you have a good grasp on it. Okay, so now I'm just filling in, look, just filling in the darkness, okay? And, okay, I'm not a big fan of this looking a little rough on the edge here, because that's not really how shadows look. They look a little more smooth. So I'm going to bring in this to smooth the edge of my shadow. There we go. A little bit. I mean, I'm not going to sweat it, because at the end of the day, the shadow is not so much about cross-hatching than the shape of the potato itself. Ooh, look, adding a little bit more darkness over the cross-hatching, because you can do that too. Look. You can still see all my little cross hatchings underneath, but I'm bringing in some easy darkness here. There, and you would do the same when you draw a face. And this is it. You see, there's a lot happening. We did a lot of marks just to convey this, but that's how it is. Cross-hatching is really a lot of patience and a lot of layering and layering and layering. Did you see how when I got to this area, I did it one way, then came back, and I came back and came back until I got the darkness that I thought was the closest to what I see in front of me. And there you have it. Next, I would like to apply exactly what we did here to, let's say, the drawing of a nose. Well, okay, so for the nose that I'm choosing today, I'm choosing a great nose by Andy Cooper on Sketchy. Andy Cooper has a bunch of facial expressions that are great, but also very clear contrast, and that's what we're going to use today. First, let's identify, just looking at the photo, where the lightest and where the darkest areas are. It's obvious that the lightest is where the light hits here and here. But the darkest, obviously, I'm using a pen here, but is going to be here and here. And a little bit of here underneath. And those are the areas that we're going to feel safer starting with. I'm going to try to draw this big so that you can see it really well, okay? So I'm kind of blowing up the size of this nose pretty dramatically. It's not always symmetrical, but this one is almost symmetrical here. Okay, I see some darkness here. I see a little bit of darkness there. Okay, darkness, darkness. That's what I want to identify first so that I feel safer starting where it's dark. Okay, very dark right here. You know that a nose is basically a little ball here. Okay, so that the shape will be rounded this way, rounded that way. Okay. And there's a lot of darkness on this side. Don't be surprised if I flip this paper around quite a bit. I will do that. So again, starting where things are dark, I am going to bring in some darkness. And not necessarily cross-hatching a whole lot right now. Although, well, obviously I can't help it. There's darkness here. There seems to be an area here that stayed in the dark. So look, boom, right away I go really dark. Because why not? Okay, dark here too. It's dark in that corner of, well, corner, you know what I mean, of the nose. Okay. Remember, we're dealing with a rounded shape. I'm not pressing too hard where I think it's not going to be that dark, so I'm starting lightly where I don't really want to commit. Okay, here we go. And my light area, according to the photo, is here too, so I don't want to go and cross-hatch in there now because it's going to be overkill. We don't want to do that. You know, you can, it's like salt in a dish, basically, cross-hatching. You don't want to add too much because then it really is impossible to take out. But if you start lightly, kind of like when you salt your dish, well, you can still add some more later. And that really is what you need to keep in mind when you cross-hatch. Is you are not able to really take it away, because try to go in there with an eraser, well, forget it. I mean, I know I don't do that, so. So I'm going lightly, you see, where things are not that dark. I'm being a little non-committal here, and that's fine. Okay, dark here though, so I feel safer doing that. Okay. pretty dark on this side too, so I feel safe making big pressure marks. I haven't spun anything around yet, but I'm so eager to do that. But I don't want to do that too much because I don't want to give you a headache either. So I'm trying to do as much without spinning my paper too much. But cross-hatching for me, if I were to draw on my lap, I would constantly be spinning this thing around. You'll see I'm going to start doing it very soon. My camera, however, cannot move, so it has to be everything that happens in front of it. Okay, I have to spin now. And why is it that I have to spin? Because when I cross-hatch, I really have one gesture that is comfortable for me, which is from, remember, up to down towards me. And when I do that, it allows me to not have to change my gesture, which is the comfortable way that I do things. I don't change my gesture, I change the orientation of the paper. Okay, let's see, okay. Checking with my original photo. Making them a little longer here. Okay, it's starting to look like something, isn't it? A little bit there. Keep in mind that I want to keep that round shape of the nose. It's dark underneath. It's dark here. Okay. And it's darker here as well. I'll get to it. Okay. A lot of darkness here, so what I'm gonna do is press pretty hard on my pencil, because keep in mind I only have an HB here, which is really traditionally not dark at all. It's just kind of your middle of the road softness. It's good softness, don't get me wrong, it's nice, but I personally like drawing with 4B, 6B, things that go much, much darker, much quicker. So this will take more work to achieve something dark than, let's say, a very dark pencil. But at the same time, I'm happy that my pencil is not super soft, my lead is not super soft, because there are areas that I feel safer with a much lighter stroke. You see, like what I'm doing right now? Probably could not do that with a 6B or a 4B. They would want to go dark right away. So I'm feeling pretty good about my choice of pencil. I really like number 2 or HB really. But when I do commission portraits, I like doing them in a darker lead right away. Again, did you notice I'm doing exactly the same thing as we did with the potato? I come back because I notice suddenly, oh my gosh, this needs to be darker. Oh wow, this is darker. So boom, darkness. Okay, see that? And here there's quite a bit of light, so I'm going to leave that alone. Just going to draw around it. Ever so lightly. It's really a game of going light and dark, whether you press hard on that pencil or not. It's just like everything else with a pencil. And then you fill in with the cross-hatching. There you go. Did you notice my construction lines are still showing? Remember that little Okay, let me try to, right, there you go. See this? I'm gonna leave that. I like that. I like the fact that it shows a little bit of sketchiness and the decisions I made are staying in the drawing. Why not? Love that. Okay. Again, your references on any drawing that you do, and the cross-hatching is no exception, you always keep in mind of where is my lightest area, where is my darkest area, and everything in between, all the values in between need to sort of align to these two extremes. Like here on the edge of the nose, it's pretty dark. So I'm applying a little bit more pressure. But for some reason, right here, it's less dark. It's pretty wild. As long as you don't lose track of your subject, the original photo that you have in front of you. Don't let your brain get in the way and decide, well, you know what, I think it'd look better if blah, blah, blah. Adding a little darkness here because I see it, so I'm adding it. Andy has a great nose. Oh my gosh, what a great nose. What a great photo too to draw from. See that? It's a nose, right? Do we all agree? I'm gonna do a little darkness here and add just a little bit on the outside so it looks a little realistic. Okay. Might be a little too thick here, but you know what? When you think that it's a little thick, you add a little bit on the outside like this, and then suddenly your lines just sort of disappear. I'm gonna add a little more on this side here, because this on the photo is pretty dark. This is dark here too. Oh, it's dark. But did you notice? No matter what I do, I don't cross-hatch away from me. I'm always cross-hatching in this direction because that is my comfort zone. And the reason why it's my comfort zone is because that is what seems to work. That is what seems to keep me more in control of the lines I want to make. A little less dark here, so I'm putting a little less pressure. A little less pressure as I go away from this particular area here. Okay. So, do you see a nose? I kind of do too. Now, if I start drawing here, there's a whole beard with hair. I want to leave that alone for now, but kind of address maybe the little bit of dark that we have here. All right. Oh, I'm noticing that there's a dark spot here. Okay. There we go. It's messy, but all this together make up something. And don't think that there's any rhyme of reason most of the time as to why I choose to go one way, and then suddenly this way. You just have to get the feel of the shape that you're drawing and follow that. That is really what dictates where the cross-hatching is going. And there you have it. So we did a potato. We did a nose with a cheap mechanical pencil, less cheap lead, but still certainly not by any stretch of the imagination an expensive piece of material. And now, in the next lesson, we are going to apply these little techniques to an entire face.